much traveling going on around for many of us. So hey, when it starts up and running, I'll be keen to get back on with it. So that takes us now onto our agenda on the next page. You'll see our agenda that we're going to cover today. I'm not going to read through all of those because as we come across it, I will then touch upon it. So let's move straight on to our next page. And so I thought we'd start off with a poll because I'd like to gauge how people feel about salary negotiations. So our first poll of today is, how do you feel about negotiating your salary? Do you feel confident? Are you okay with it? Are you unsure how to negotiate? Not confident or apprehensive? Or it's a taboo topic? Okay, so how do you feel about salary negotiation? Right, so I am going to launch the poll now. And hopefully you should all see that poll. I'm going to give you all about a minute to enter your thoughts. So here goes. Okay, great. I can see some of you have started entering. There's a lot more of you still. Cast your votes. How do you feel? Okay. Yeah, this keeps changing. There was a lot of confidence in the beginning, but it's now changing. Okay, we're not quite there at 100%. I'm going to give you about 30 more seconds to go. Okay, any more? Coming? How do you feel? Okay, almost there, a couple more seconds. All right. Okay. Is that it? Any more? Come on. About 2% more. Can we get it up? Okay, so our minute's up. How do you feel about negotiating your salary? So 13% of you felt confident. The majority of you, 47%, are unsure how to negotiate. And 33% said they don't feel confident, apprehensive. And interesting enough, 77% of you say it's a taboo topic. And I know in some cultures and just some countries, it is very much a taboo topic. Interesting to see how many of you have voted for unsure how to negotiate and that you're not confident. Hopefully by the time we get to the end of this webinar, you'll be feeling much more confident in your skills and your ability to negotiate. Okay, thanks very much everyone for participating in that poll. So now we can move on to our next topic. Okay, so now let's look at taking the fear out of salary negotiations. So we're going to actually be looking at some more statistics around people's attitude to salary negotiation. So according to a survey by a recruitment firm, Robert Half, around 39% of workers tried to negotiate a higher salary during their last job offer. 46% of men negotiated salary compared to 34% of women. So clearly there's an indication that men are more likely to negotiate their salary than women. And workers aged 18 to 34 were 45% more likely to negotiate their salary than those aged 35 to 54, which were 40% likely to negotiate their salaries. And those aged at 55 or older were 30% likely to negotiate their salary. When asked how comfortable they were talking with their employer about money, 54% of the survey respondents said that they would feel more comfortable negotiating a higher salary of a new employer than asking for a raise in their current job. So thinking about, given all the nervousness that we have when it comes to salary negotiation, does it actually pay to negotiate? Well, a study by a recruitment company, JobVite, found that 84% of those who did negotiate their salaries ended up with receiving higher salaries. So short answer is, yeah, it pays to negotiate. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. And again, still thinking around the topic of taking the fear out of negotiation. Instead, we're going to just sort of talk through a little bit about mindset around negotiation. So some of the things that hold us back. So given the amount of importance we attach to our salary, why are people so reluctant to negotiate for what they really want? Well, quite often people start their job search with a scarcity mindset. Our minds tend to envision 100% of people applying for a small amount of positions. So when we get through the interview process and are finally presented with the job offer, we feel so relieved to be chosen that we dare not rock the boat. The number one factor holding people back from negotiating is fear. Fear the company will retract the job offer. Basically, unless you're aggressive or unprofessional, this is highly unlikely to happen. Remember, you and the employer will have put a lot of time and energy through going through the interview process. The company will also have invested a lot of resources, and therefore they are not going to want to throw all of that effort away simply because you counteroffered. What's the worst case scenario? Well, they may say, our offer is firm. Best case, your counter is accepted. However, the most likely outcome is that you and the employer will work together and end up somewhere in between their offer and your counteroffer. Another factor is lack of skills. People often avoid negotiating because they feel that they lack skills to properly negotiate their salary, and they find the negotiation process stressful and unpleasant. Negotiation is tough work, and that is why preparation is key. Self-doubt about our value. This is a genuine concern for a lot of people. How can you negotiate your salary when you're not really sure what you're worth or what your value is? This is especially true for those of you who are transitioning to a different career. You may know what you're worth in your industry or region, but how do you know what you're worth to the company? You may think the company knows your value best, but often companies will offer you an amount with the expectation that you are likely to come back with a counteroffer. If you simply accept the offer, then you will never really know how much they think you're truly worth. Some people think, I don't want to come across as greedy. Well, if you counteroffer, they might think that, but also equally, you may find out that their initial offer wasn't actually their best offer and that they actually left some headroom in case you counteroffered. Businesses are all about maximizing value. By putting in a counteroffer, you are also demonstrating your ability to maximize your value. Other things that people think about and worried about, what holds them back, we think the employer has the upper hand. So basically, we think the employer holds all the cards to their chest and we have no choice. Well, that's the salary I signed up for, is what we tell ourselves. It's only a small company. Culturally, it's not something we do. And a really, really common one is people often think, I'll get my foot in the door and then I'll ask for a raise. On the surface, this may sound good. You won't appear greedy and you don't need to haggle about what you're worth. So everybody's happy, right? Problem is, once you get inside a company, there's often a ceiling on the amount of a raise you can get at any given time. Therefore, the 10% uplift you are hoping to negotiate for will not materialize because company policy dictates that you can only get a 6% raise per annum. Your mindset around salary negotiation is 95% psychological. Discomfort around the negotiation process is a natural feeling. Salary negotiation isn't something you do regularly. The reality is that most employers expect some degree of pushback when it comes to salary negotiation for new hires. It's all about adopting the right approach to negotiation. You don't want to come across as arrogant or demanding. Moving on to our next slide, let's have a little talk through why is salary negotiation important? Well, first of all, it's important to get the right mindset when it comes to negotiating your salary, and here's why. In actual fact, when you think it through, there is no downside to asking, what's the worst thing that can happen if you negotiate your salary? Well, you are simply asking for more money based on what you believe your value is. Provided you are being professional, like I said before, and not being arrogant or demanding, your request will either be accepted or rejected. If it's accepted, great, you get more money. If it's rejected, well, you still have the salary initially offered to you on the table. And if you're negotiating from a position where you're already in a job, then you will still receive your existing salary. Ultimately, the outcome will either be positive or it will remain neutral. There is no downside. What's another factor to consider? Well, it could affect your future salary. The way how your future pay is calculated is often based off the back of your starting salary. So even if you change roles within the organization, the company may use your existing salary as the baseline for determining your new salary. If you start on a higher amount, that gives you room to negotiate for even more money once you're inside the company. Confidence and integrity. When you understand your value, you can negotiate much more confidently. When you negotiate, it also demonstrates to an employer that you are willing to put time and effort into conducting proper research. Being upfront about your expectations shows that you are being transparent and operating with integrity. Employer incentives. What do I mean by that? Employers are not motivated to give you more money up front, and they will not reveal what the previous person doing the role earned. So the chances are they are expecting you to come back with a counteroffer on the basis that you've done your homework. For these reasons, many employers offer a salary slightly below the going rate. If you accept that initial figure straight away, you will be operating at a loss, since they were prepared to pay you more if you counteroffered. Try not to think of salary negotiation as a conflict. It's an important conversation between two parties who want to come to an agreement so that both parties get what they want. You get paid what you're worth, and in return, they get your full focus and attention. Moving on to our next slide, I've got another poll for you. And so I'm interested, as part of your research, when you're job searching, which salary sites do you use as part of your salary research for jobs? So is it Glassdoor? Because I know many of you know about Glassdoor. Is it Glassdoor plus another site? Do you use multiple salary sites to help you with your research? Or do you not do any salary research at all? So this is your next poll question, and I am about to launch this poll. So I'm going to, oh, hold on, there's my next poll. Where's that gone? Hold on one moment, everybody. For some reason, I'm not seeing, here it is. Okay, right, I'm going to launch the second poll. Here it goes. So I'm going to give you again about a minute to tell me which salary sites do you use as part of your salary research. Yeah, interesting, very mixed. Okay, wow. Yeah, we're getting a real sense of variety here of what people do. Okay, we're almost there, we're at 90%. These polls are totally 100% anonymous, guys, so nobody's going to know what you voted or how you voted. Okay, so hopefully that will give you confidence to put your vote in. So we're at 90%. Can we get it up to 100%? Be great if we could. Okay, you have got 10 more seconds. So 10 more seconds, 95%, fantastic. Okay, 5 more seconds, then I'm going to end the poll. Okay, polls ended. So what have we got? We have got 37% of you use Glassdoor, so that's the majority. And I hear a lot of students talking about Glassdoor. So I'm not surprised at that result. 16% of you use Glassdoor and one other salary site. Actually, 32% of you, which is interesting, use multiple salary sites, which is great. Glad to hear that a lot of you are comparing. And 21% don't do any salary research at all. So hopefully by the end of this webinar, those of you who don't do any salary research at all will see the importance of actually doing salary research, which is quite critical and crucial to understanding your value. So thank you all very much for participating in that poll. And so we can now move on to our next item or our next slide. So moving on, again, we are just finishing off on taking the fear. So now we're going to move on to our next topic, which is knowing your financial worth. Okay, so this is crucial when it comes to negotiating and understanding your financial worth. First point that I want you to understand is that there is a difference between your worth and your value. Okay, so your worth is the amount of money you expect to receive, and this will be based on your education level. It's going to be based on your level of experience, geographical location, as well as how you present yourself before, during, and after the interview. Your value is about the strength and the skill set you will bring to the position and the organization. From the organization's perspective, the worth of the position will be the salary range for the job. The value, however, is the organization's need of that position. So how critical is that position to the organization? Moving on to our next slide. Okay. we're going to go into a phase where we look at some of the salary tools. So the idea is that an excellent candidate for a job will be able to match their worth and value to those of the job and organization. And in order to do that, you need to, of course, do some thorough research. And to help you to be able to understand worth and value, there are a number of sites that collect salary information based on job title. And some of you know some of them. Glassdoor, very common, salary.com, monster.com, Indeed, payscale.com, comparably, and there are others which I haven't mentioned, but there are a number of sites that you can use, and they contain salary calculation tools that can assist you in working out what you're worth. Some of these sites also have the salary ranges for companies that you might be interviewing at. So do take your time in deciding which site works best for you and for your purposes, and may actually have the information that you're looking for on the specific company that you're interviewing at. So let's take a look closer at some of these salary tools and move on to the next slide, where you'll be able to see an example. So there are, like I said, there are a number of different salary calculation tools. Each present a range of information in different formats. They give different levels of information. Some of the online tools are based on real people, real life data. And the first one that you will see is the salary tool for Glassdoor. So for those of you who use Glassdoor to do your salary research, you'll be very familiar with this screenshot. Glassdoor is a site where people anonymously report their salaries. I use data scientist as the job search title for this. I use London as a starting point. I'm based in London, so I just thought as the initial one, I'll use London. So I've tailored the search to basically find out how much data scientists earn in London. As you can see, the salary ranges from 35k to 75k, with an average pay of £50,843 per year. Okay, so that's an example of what you see if you went onto Glassdoor. Moving on to the next page, this is an example of Monster.com's salary calculator tool, and I'm not sure how many of you use it, but however, Monster.com provides you with additional information. So what you will see here is, obviously it gives you the salary range, which most and all of them will give you, but in addition to that, you will notice that it also highlights which skills could increase your value. So it mentions machine learning and time series analysis, and you'll see that on the bottom left hand corner. So there's a little box which tells you about, you know, how to boost your value. The other factor I should have mentioned is you'll see that even though it's still data scientist, is that I've changed the location. So I've changed the location to Los Angeles, California. Just thought it would be good to see the contrast. And you will also notice that it gives an indication of the salary for other jobs in the data science field. So if you're looking for something closely connected to data scientists and you're thinking, well, what else could I do which is affiliated, you'll see in the middle box there's a box titled salary for related jobs, which can take you through to information on those particular jobs, data engineer, etc. Let's move to our next slide and have a look at salary.com salary tools. So what you see here is a screenshot from salary.com's tool. This tool allows you to do a more granular search by including details such as your education, years of experience, who will be your direct report. It also shows other pay elements you may get, such as bonuses. So it gives you a complete package, or a picture of the complete package you might receive. What's also helpful about salary.com is this is an example of one of the tools that you can use to search by company. So if you look on the left-hand side, you've got the know your worth part or area where you can sort of type in the job title you're searching under. But further below that, you'll see the sort of green button, and below that you'll see it's got search tools that you can look for. So you can look for skills, you can look for companies, and that can probably be very useful and helpful to some of you if you're identifying at a particularly well-known company and you want to find out a bit more specifically about what type of package that company offers. So let's move on to the next slide. And interestingly enough, this again is from salary.com, and they offer a personalized salary report which is tailored and takes into account your personalized circumstances. It highlights factors specific to you that are likely to increase your value under an area titled Key Strengths. you do have to pay for this service, and it costs between $25 and $75. So it could get quite expensive if you were thinking of getting a report for a couple of companies you might be interviewing at. Why might you get one? Well, you are provided with an 18-page report, and it includes things like preparing for a raise worksheet, and it gives you 2 pages covering negotiation dialogue and scenarios. So it basically gives you ideas how to respond at the negotiation stage. Some people may feel that it's worth getting this if they've landed an interview at their ideal company and really want that additional support at the negotiation stage. Turning to our next slide, this is the last salary tool that we'll look at. Like I say, there are a lot out there, but I've just chosen these ones. And this is Indeed salary tool. And again, you'll see the job title is data scientist. Like the other tools, it gives you the salary range. However, it also breaks the salary range down based on years of experience. It highlights the common benefits you get with a role. So that's quite interesting to understand what does the whole package look like. Then it also shows you, interestingly enough, who are the top paying companies in that territory for data science. And then it gives you a list of the highest paying cities in that territory, which could be very good if you are strategically targeting which area you'd like to work in. And you're able to then sort of see and do a comparison between which different area, what the pay that different areas are likely to give you for the same role. So now we're going to turn to our next slide, okay? And so once you properly research the salary range for the role you're interested in, use it to determine a position's worth. Whichever salary tool you choose to use, remember your worth needs to take into account your qualification and experience, so it's not just based on the job title. You need to take into account your location or where the job is located. This could have the biggest effect on your salary expectations. The industry, so salary ranges vary widely from industry to industry. So depending on which industry you're in, you may find a significant difference if you move to a data science role, for example, another industry. The company size, so generally larger sizes, companies tend to pay better than smaller size companies, and again, better than early stage startups. You've also need to take into account the job title, the grade, and your responsibilities. These will all play into your salary. Expertise, again, are you in a high demand field or will you be going into a highly specialized area? This is likely to put you in a position where you may be able to negotiate beyond the average salary pay for the role. So let's move on to the next question. Again, we're still on know your financial worth. So some questions that you may ask which causes deeper thinking in terms of around value. Right? So like I said before, to help you determine the value of the position, think about things like, why is the position vacant? So has the role been vacant for a long time? Are they struggling to fill it? What makes you unique compared to other candidates? Is the company looking for a unique skill set? Different companies are looking for different skills. Some companies will genuinely view you more valuable than others. The other thing to bear in mind is how well do you fit with the company culture? These all have a bearing and impact on value. Having this information will help you prepare for your interview and also for the question that everyone gets nervous about. What salary package are you looking for? This is one of the questions that I know a lot of people get nervous around when an employer or a recruiter asks them this question. This question can be based and it can be asked of you at any stage of the interview process. Some people ask it before the interview stage, some wait until they decide to make you an offer, some may ask it at stage 2 or stage 3. Right? The first thing I recommend is, if you're asked this question, hold on to this information for as long as possible, and definitely resist answering this directly during the first stage interview. Here's why. At the initial interview stage, you will not have had a chance to showcase your skills and abilities. You will also not have had a chance to really understand what your responsibilities will be and what their expectations are, or what type of compensation package they are offering. You really want to be revealing this information when things are stacked in your favor. When is that likely to be? Well, that is likely to be at the end of the process, when they're willing to make you an offer and you've clearly won them over. Some companies will push you to give them a number. If you find yourself in that situation, here's one of the things that you can say. Based on market research and what I know about your company, the range that I'm thinking of is X amount. However, I'd really like to continue discussions around the role so that we can both see how I might be of value to your team. Once that's clear, then we can discuss the compensation package in more detail if that works for you. When you say something like that, you'll see you haven't actually committed to a number, but you've given them an idea of what you're thinking around, even if that might be an initial starting point. So you don't want to commit to a figure too early in the process. Once you demonstrate the value you can bring to the company, they will be more likely to consider your ideal number. So let's move on to the next slide. So we're going to be covering another topic now, impact of COVID-19 on jobs. And before we do that, I just want to spend a minute or two just getting you to share your thoughts. So for those of you who have been job hunting recently, what is your experience of job hunting since the lockdown? So if you could just type in the chat box, I'd be grateful. What's your experience of job hunting since the lockdown? And I know it's going to be very varied because I know some people have actually been interviewing. I've come across students who have been interviewing. And some people have decided to make a decision that they're not going to be searching at the moment, that they're actually going to be investing their time in learning and development. So they're utilizing this time in isolation to upskill themselves. But what are your thoughts? Yeah, great. So my colleague Mira's in the chat room to establish your thoughts. What are people thinking? Yeah. Market has changed. There are jobs out there. Yeah. So anybody share your thoughts? What are people thinking? There are jobs. People are. So, yep, some of you are on hold. 100%. Totally understand that. It's not much changes in certain areas. You're okay. So it's interesting. Yeah, some people have decided to 100% on hold. They're going to wait. Anyone else going to share? Okay, not sure whether now's the right time to apply. Hiring freezes. Yeah, there are hiring freezes on. Focusing on learning now instead of job hunting. Interesting. People are noticing a lot less offers than it was before the lockdown. Yeah, I can agree with that. Okay. Open to job offers. Fantastic. Someone's completed their nano degree and they're open. Yeah, hopefully now, as things are moving along and the lockdown is being slowly opened out more in certain countries, people will start to see more changes. So here in the UK, we're slowly sort of coming out of lockdown in stages, and people are able to meet up a bit more, and businesses, more importantly, are starting to open up. So hopefully as a result of that, this will push through to the recruitment market and people will start to see hiring freezes lifted. But we're going to talk a bit more about that now. So let's just now move on to our next slide. Okay, so COVID-19 potential impact on jobs. So as most of you know, it has definitely impacted the way employers conduct their business, and also it's impacting how they plan for the future. Some employers have ramped up their technology hiring, others have put a freeze on the hiring of non-essential roles, and some have rescinded, unfortunately, initial offers. So I know people who've had internships pulled, unfortunately, and others who have had job offers also rescinded. Moving on to our next slide, we are going to take a look at some statistics to help us get a better understanding of what's really going on in the job market from a tech perspective. And now these statistics are from the hiring company Dice. Now, many of you will know of Dice and probably use their job search board to search for jobs. And they actually produced a report on the early impact of COVID-19 on hiring in the tech industry. And they found the top employers of Q1 2020 primarily consisted of tech giants, consulting agencies, and government contractors. Between Feb and March, for example, Amazon increased its tech job posting by 110%. They were looking to hire software developers and network engineers, as the impact of COVID-19 led many consumers to turn to Amazon as alternatives to going to the grocery store or hardware stores. Walmart also increased its job postings in March by 64%. Software developers and project manager roles topped the lot of roles the retailer was looking to fill. And again, you will see examples of other well-known employers who sort of, again, increased their hiring potential during that period. So Cisco Systems is down there. You've got Sony, you've got NBC. So all of these are showing statistics of job hirings in the tech sector. So moving on to our next page, which has some more statistics. However, this, again, it's from DICE. This is showing the change in tech job postings from Feb to March 2020. And you will notice that there's a significant increase in cybersecurity roles. And this was due to the number of pandemic-themed phishing and cyber attacks, which then led businesses to increase their cybersecurity roles. So basically, you know, a lot of businesses started to face attacks with people sort of, all this phishing and cyberware became really a hot theme for businesses. And so you will notice here that there has been a significant increase in their cybersecurity engineering job posters. In March, businesses such as Wells Fargo, Northrop Grumman, and BAE Systems topped the list of employers looking to hire the most cybersecurity engineers. Job postings for system engineers also rose by 11% between Feb and March. This suggests that companies are increasing their focus on maintaining their network and infrastructure in these circumstances. SAIC, Raytheon, and Northrop Grumman were all looking to hire system engineers at the highest volume in March. Now let's also look at declining job postings. So interestingly, you'll see that there's been a decline in job posting for software developers. That was down 8%, and front-end developers was down 25% between Feb and March. This suggests that many employers may be deprioritizing new projects to focus on core project offerings and infrastructure maintenance. So moving on to the next slide, and this is the last set of the statistics we will look at. And this slide relates to tech skill demands between Feb and March 2020. So with the rise of COVID-19, it appears that employers have taken a greater interest in skills that contribute to the maintenance and shifting of companies' technology infrastructure. The requirement for people with DevOps skills grew by 9% between Feb and March, C++ grew by 7%, and quality assurance grew by 6%. Python grew by 4%. One suggestion for this is that employers are not only looking for technologists who can handle immense amounts of legacy code written in Python, but technologists who can also build new apps and services that can help companies adjust to a post-COVID-19 world. It's worth noting which skills fell over that period. Web development fell by 25%. Ruby, which you can't see on the chart, actually fell by 30%. What's behind this decrease? DICE suggests it's down to companies being forced to take a reactionary stance under COVID-19, with priority and focus centered around setting employees up to work remotely rather than updating their website. However, as we move to a different phase of COVID-19, employees are likely to take another look at their long-term web and infrastructure projects. Another thing to look out for going forward is the potential change to salary offers. As businesses try to recover from the financial impact of COVID-19 and hiring freezes are removed, it is quite likely that the salary for future jobs are likely to come under closer scrutiny. And you may well find that they're coming in at a lower range than they would have pre-COVID-19. Interestingly enough, last week, Gulf News reported that each is prepared to receive a 15 to 20% cut in salary offers for open positions, and other countries may also look to take a similar approach. So we are going to move on to our final poll for today on the next slide. So moving on. So hopefully you can all see that final poll. I'm going to get ready to launch it. Did you negotiate your salary at the job offer stage or ask for a pay rise at your previous performance review? So that's going to be your next poll. So yes, you might have answered yes, negotiated my salary at job offer stage and asked for a pay rise during my last performance review. Yes, you may have negotiated your salary at the job offer stage, or yes, you negotiated for a pay rise at your last work performance review, or maybe no, you didn't negotiate for a pay rise either at your last job offer or at your last performance review. So I am about to launch this poll, everybody. And here goes. It's launching this poll. So interesting to understand. Did you negotiate your salary? Oh, okay, I'm going to give you guys a minute and see how you get on. Okay, interesting. How confident were you feeling at your last job offer? Okay, the votes are coming in. Fantastic. Keep them coming in. Okay, 60%. Great. 40% more to come in. Keep going, guys. Ooh, interesting. The dynamics are changing. Remember, this is 100% anonymous. People won't know how you voted. Yeah. Fantastic. We are at 88%. Come on, you can do it. 100. Be great if we can get 100%. It's really interesting to understand. Did you negotiate your salary at the job offer stage? Okay, you've got about, I'm going to give you all another 5 seconds. We're at 88%. Can we at least get it up to 90? Okay, 5 more seconds, and then I am going to call. Anybody else? Okay, that's it. I'm going to close the poll. Okay, the results are in. So what happened? 55% of you said no. You didn't negotiate at all, either at the initial job offer stage or at your last performance pay review. How many? So again, interestingly, and then it splits out to 18% for the rest. So 18% of you did negotiate your salary at the job offer stage and ask for a pay rise during your last work performance. Good on you, those of you who did. 18% of you says yes, you negotiated at your last job offer, and 18% of you said yes, you negotiated a pay rise at your last pay performance review. So thanks so much, guys, for sharing that information with us. That's really helpful to know and understand where you're at on this. So we are now going to move on to our next slide and topic. So this is going to be all about creating your negotiation strategy. Okay, and some of you may have had a go at doing your own type of strategy and putting one in place. But what I want to do now is basically, I want you all to imagine this scenario. So imagine you're at home and you receive a call from the HR manager, a recruiter for a job you've been interviewing for. They've got some feedback for you from your final stage interview. The company would like to make you an offer. At this point, please note, make sure you grab a pen and paper to capture the conversation. Resist the temptation to rush into the detail of the offer. First, ask for feedback on your interview. It's important to understand what the company liked about you or what skills or qualities stood out for them. You want to capture this because the tendency is that when you're on the phone, there's a lot of stuff that is said either by the HR manager or by a recruiter, which they're not necessarily willing to commit to emails. So emails tend to be a lot more vague. So make sure you capture important points that are said on the telephone. That way, if you need to follow up on a point that's been mentioned, you've got it written down and you can follow it up at a later stage. Remember, if you're at this stage, it means that you showcased your skills well and the organization are convinced that you are the right person for the job. So therefore, you should start off on a confident footing. Now, once you've captured all that feedback about how you performed at the interview, it's now time for you to go in and get some more details. If while they're talking to you, the figure comes out and the offer appears to come on the low side, make sure you listen to their full explanation of what the salary package entails. Even if you're disappointed with the initial offer, maintain a positive attitude. Let them know you really like the company and you'd really like to work for them, but the money offer doesn't quite work for you. You're sure they'll be able to come up with a salary package that works for both parties. Do not feel pressure to make a decision on the spot. Ask for more time to think about it, and here's why. If the offer is 75k and you immediately ask if they can do 80k, you've just told them what it will take to get you on board without taking time to reflect on what you've been offered. If you reflect on what you said after the conversation and think, oh, I should have asked for a slightly higher figure, you've already closed the window of opportunity and now you have to negotiate within that range. Chances are the company will come back to you with a figure in between, so say around 78k. Asking for more time allows you also to follow up with companies you may be interviewing with at the same time to gauge whether or not they can expedite the interview process in the hope that you may get another offer to compare and compete with against your initial offer. Another point that you really need to consider is mind your words during the conversation. So if you decide you're going to make a counteroffer on the call and you state your number followed by a comment along the lines of, I totally understand if you can't do this, you totally undercut the value for what you're asking for. Don't give away permission for them to turn you down. Be clear, but be affirmative in your language. Think about communicating something along the lines of, given the market range for positions similar to this one, I'm requesting a 10% increase or whatever the increase you're looking for on my offer. Looking forward to talking with you more about this and what would be a reasonable market rate for my value to the company. You then might want to add, you're looking forward to working together. You want to keep the relationship pleasant and moving forward, and you want to make sure that they understand that you really are keen and want to work with them. Moving on to the next slide. Assuming you've asked them and you've told them you want to think it over and you've got thinking over time, what do you do next? Well, you're going to use that time to sit down and reflect on whether the salary package as a whole meets your expectation. Does it truly reflect the responsibilities and abilities needed to do the job? You may even want to come up with some sort of scoring sheet where you put down the actual salary amount plus the benefits, so the non-sort of cash elements of the package that are important to you, and rate them. Give them a rating and think about which ones that you might want to include as part of your negotiation tactics. So, for example, you may find out as part of the process that there will only be 2 of you in the team and that you will be expected to deputize for your boss when he or she is away. This may in turn cause you to reflect on how much it is you now really want for the job or what your expectations are. Remind yourself of what you're worth. So if you've done your homework thoroughly before the interview, you will have a bottom end figure in mind. So this bottom end figure is the absolute lowest amount salary you are willing to accept, and you will also have an ideal figure, so that's going to be your top amount, and then there will be a figure in between which you are comfortable with accepting. Then keep in mind the worth and value of the position to the organization and make sure you negotiate within that salary range. So moving on to the next slide. When you're preparing your response, decide whether you want to respond by email or talk it through over the phone. Some of you will feel more comfortable responding and communicating by email. Some of you will feel totally comfortable speaking over the phone. It's totally up to you. Remember, you're negotiating for your compensation package as a whole, so pay attention to other elements that make up your compensation package. These also affect your standard of living and quality of life. How much paid time off will you get? What's the bonus structure? Are they offering health insurance? Will they be investing in your career progression, so paying for you to go on courses? Will there be growth potential? These are all important points to consider. Decide what you value and let that help you guide your negotiation strategy. Maybe you can negotiate some additional vacation leave instead of a base salary increase. If you're going to negotiate over the phone, create a script and practice. Okay, let's move on to our next slide. So I just want to cover a couple of do's and don'ts to keep in mind when you're negotiating. So one of the first points that I've mentioned here is take the emotion out of it. So what do I mean by that? Well, the fact that you've got a number of financial commitments has nothing and is of no interest to do with the company. They're not interested in that, okay? This is purely a business conversation. If you're going to negotiate, make sure you do it from a professional values perspective. So build your case as to what value that you bring to the company. How are you going to benefit them? What's the value add, the additional sort of skill set that you're bringing and that they will benefit from? Base it around that and build your case around that. Watch your tone. You're not in a conflict situation. You're having an important conversation that needs to be managed. You don't want to come across as aggressive. Take deep breaths if you need to. Be flexible. Organisations are often tied up by policies and procedures, so whilst they may not be able to budge on the salary, they may be willing to move on to other elements of the compensation package, which is why I suggested to you to have that scoring table where you decide to prioritise which of the other elements of the package, apart from the salary, is important to you. If you bang on and on about just the salary figure, it can get quite annoying to the company and make you look like all you're interested in is the money. Another factor is to make sure you cover all your points of concern at one time. So don't go out with 2 points, then see if you get them, then go back with a couple more points, see if you can get that as well. That approach will only irritate the employer. It will also make you look incompetent and as if you're not sure what you really, really want. So when you're going out, if you've got points of concern, make sure you document them and you put them all in one email or one phone call. You discuss them in one phone call and leave it at that. Don't oversell yourself. So what do I mean by that? If you haggle for a significant increase on the initial offer or you push for an amount outside the salary, you will be setting an extremely high expectation when you come on board. If you feel you can meet that expectation, then all fair dues to you. However, this is a particularly important point, I think, for those of you who are looking to transition to a different career. We really need to be mindful of this. If a company ends up paying you the salary for someone with 5 years experience in that role, and you only have 1 year experience, their expectation is that you will operate at the higher benchmark, and you may find yourself facing a very steep learning curve. The benchmark for achieving bonuses and other key performing factors may also end up being much higher than you expected. So moving on to our next slide and topic. I'm just going to mention quickly, because I know I want to give you guys time for Q&A, a few words about negotiating pay rise during performance review. So this is going to take on slightly different connotation from when you're negotiating at the initial offer stage. These are the points that I think that might be helpful to you to bear in mind. So if you are coming up to a pay performance review, or just from the way how your company operates, when that point in time is coming up for them to start doing the reviews, or the management team are working on it, think about speaking to your manager about it at that stage. It's all about timing. You want to aim to discuss your pay rise request before the salary increases are agreed further up the chain. Otherwise, you're likely to be told it's too late for any additional changes to the salary to be made. And you don't want to sort of be trying to haggle at a time when there is no way that your boss will consider having to go further up the chain and put your request before other senior management team members. So it's better for you to learn and understand at what point in time do they start these discussions. And it's at that point in time you want to be able to arrange a meeting with your manager or supervisor and start the ball rolling with discussions around what type of salary you would like and your business case for why you feel that the salary increase is justified, or your rationale. Again, like I say, make sure you've done your salary research. You should have a clear number in mind or a tight salary range that you're looking for. When you raise your figure with your manager, let them know that you've done your research and reference your sources, okay? Let them know. Don't be afraid to share whichever salary calculation tool you've used. If you've seen information about your company in specific and what they're offering, share that source with them, yeah? Give them the full picture. Okay? If a colleague discloses their pay to you, colleagues don't often do it, but you know, some of us have close bonds with colleagues and it may end up coming up in a conversation. Do not use it as a bargaining chip, okay? There could be various reasons why their salary differs from yours. So you don't want to bring that in the conversation. Keep it objective. Don't bring that type of subjectivity into it. Also, keep the conversation separate. So you may have 10 things that you want to discuss with your manager. When it comes to discussing about your salary, do not mix that into the midst of conversation, okay? Put 100% focus on this one thing. You want your manager's 100% attention, time and attention on this one issue. Do not give an ultimatum. So unless you have a job offer you are genuinely considering accepting, or you are happy to walk away from your job, do not threaten to leave if they don't increase your pay. Remember, even if you get what you want, this could sour your relationship with your boss, and you have to continue working with them for the next foreseeable future. Turning on to your next slide. Again, just finishing off negotiating pay rise performance review, what the likely comeback might be. So some of you may have heard this in the past when you've asked, what if you don't get what you want, right? So what if they say, we don't have the budget for it this year? Well, rather than let the conversation drop, then ask them, when do you think you'll have the budget? Keep that conversation moving. If your boss won't or can't commit, ask how close does he think or she think you can come to my numbers, right? Alternatively, if they think that you haven't met a certain benchmark, or if they think that you need to move up a certain level in order to increase your pay, ask them, how can I gain the skills needed to get up to the next level? Always be seeking to tie them into a next point or a next time for review or something else that you can go back to them with. Ultimately, sometimes things just don't work out. No matter how much you push, there may not be any movement, and you may find that this has been happening year after year. And ultimately, it may well be a signal that it's just time for you to move on. So just be open and go with the flow, but try and get your manager to commit either to another date when you can discuss it again, or a point in time that's helpful for both of you to move things along. Okay. So takeaway points quickly. I'm going to go through the takeaway points. Know your financial worth and value. Use salary tools to help you. Understand your financial worth and value from the company's perspective. Don't be pressured to giving a quick answer. Okay. You'll often find that an HR manager, recruiter loves nothing less than to keep you on the phone and get you to commit. What do you think? What do you think about those figures? Don't give in to that pressure. Remember, your compensation package is more than your salary. Negotiate your benefits. Take the emotion out of the conversation. Preparation is key. Prepare your response and practice, practice, practice. If you need additional support or help around salary negotiation, book a session with a career coach to further support you on how you structure this or how you go about this. And sometimes things don't go our way. It could be time for you to move on. So on the next slide, you'll see that there are a couple of resources really from this session that I wanted to share with you in case you wanted to take that away. So it's just some suggested reading around salary negotiation for those of you who may want something a bit more in depth. And also I've got the links to the a couple of the salary website. So Comparably, I don't know how many of you have used comparably.com, but it's actually tailored to the tech industry and shares salary ranges, and it also shares culture reviews. So some of you might find that one interesting to use. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the end of our webinar. So we've got a couple of minutes left, and I'm happy to take some Q&As if you've got any questions. So if anybody's got any questions that they'd like to answer, please shout them out. Mira, is there anything that you can see in particular that you think that you can shout out? Let's have a look. Yeah, people are asking, is there a chance you can get to rewatch this? The link, yeah. This webinar is being recorded, and I will share the link with you all. So, yeah, you will get to record this. I see Mira's answered that. Thank you, Mira.
Yeah, so we have a couple of questions here. Is there a way to find out the best financial offer the company may be willing to give without being considered greedy?
Not really. I mean, this is where it's almost a bit like a dance. They're never going to reveal what their range is. And this is why it really helps that if you're able to find out specific information on their company, on that particular company. So like I mentioned to you, salary.com, and I think Comparably does it as well, has a company review site. So you may find that your company in particular, or the one that you're interviewing at, is on that site. And I suggest going into the company section and finding out as much as you can about the salary range that they offer. Bearing in mind that will also be tailored to how many years experience somebody has. So their criteria for paying somebody at the maximum end may be based on a number of factors. It may be based also on what unique skill set the person is bringing to the role. And also, as I mentioned before, how critical is the role to the business. So if there are two people in the team and there's only one person and they're struggling to meet business demand, they may well be willing to pay a lot more for somebody to come on board than if you're in a team of, say, 10 or 12 people.
So thanks for that, Jackie. We have one more question from Michelle. She's asking, in large investment banks, who knows when you negotiate your salary? Is it HR and your immediate line manager, or many managers up in the line?
So your immediate line managers should know. There should be a timetable. So, and I say this because I come from a banking background as well. And I know that, you know, with experience from the banks I've worked in, is that there is so much time and effort that goes into that whole process that really, if they are going to announce what the pay increases are, say in June, by say December of the end of that year, really they're starting to kick off the process, and your manager will be asked about feeding in up the pipeline to their thoughts about you. You should also have in your diary, depending on how you operate, certain one-to-ones which can gauge how you're performing. This is at the time when you need to reflect whether or not you've met your obligations or your goals. So some companies use SMART, for example, so your goals, specific, measurable, all of that. You need to then be able to determine, have you hit that? And at that point, start to think of, if there isn't a one-to-one in the calendar with your HR manager, with your immediate manager, then set one up or ask to speak to them and go to them and ask them specifically about whether they've already started to feed in on this whole process, and mention to them that you would like to set up a conversation with them or a meeting with them to discuss your salary.
So there are a lot of questions which have come in, Jackie, but the thing is that I guess the time is up, so we will have to choose probably one more question. And I will go with Manish is asking, how reliable are these tools, as they rely on data reported by some employees or ex-employees, which is not huge. Actual figures may vary. So is it okay to rely on them to greater extent?
Now that's a great question, actually, because some tools are better than others. So for example, salary.com, and you'll see it on the resources page, which actually Mira has up right now. Salary.com is a very reliable tool because they collect worldwide HR reported compensation data. So this information is coming in directly from HRs at these companies. I think the ones that you may have to watch out for more is like PayScale. So PayScale uses crowdsourced data. And so what you really need to find out is, what is the source of data used to pull all that information from? Is it coming from actual individuals, like Glassdoor does as well, or is it crowdsourced data?
So Jackie, are you going to be on career hotline chat now immediately?
So
Okay.
I am moving over to the career hotline chat room now. So for those of you who may want to continue the conversation, I'm going to be in the chat room. Again, some of these questions may be specific to your personal circumstances. You may find it easier or better to book some time with one of the career coaches. Obviously, you've got myself and Mira on the call, but there are other career coaches that you may feel free to reach out to. Book a session with us and we can talk you more thoroughly through your situation, your questions on this topic. So I hope you all have enjoyed this. The recording will be available soon, and the presentation slide pack, sorry, I'm happy to share that with you all if you're interested. And I hope to see some of you over in the Student Hub shortly. Okay, thanks everybody. Take care, enjoy the rest of your day.